Tonight we begin in the city of Aurelian, heart of the Solarian Empire, gleamed under the midday sun, its marble spires piercing a sky of relentless blue. The great forum buzzed with merchants hawking silks from the eastern provinces, philosophers debating beneath colonnades, and senators in crimson togas weaving through crowds, their voices low with intrigue. At the city's center, the imperial palace rose like a mountain of alabaster and gold, its domes reflecting the sun's fire. Within its halls, Emperor Cassian IV, Lord of the Four Seas, sat upon the sun throne, his shoulders heavy with the weight of a crown that felt more like a shackle. Cassian was 32, his face sharp and regal, his dark eyes shadowed by sleepless nights. His black hair, streaked with premature gray, was bound by a golden diadem, its weight a constant reminder of his duties. The empire stretched from the frostbitten peaks of the Nordhals to the sun-scorched sands of the Saffron Coast, a realm forged by his ancestors' swords and held by his own relentless will. Yet, as he listened to General Varro's report on the barbarian raids along the northern frontier, his mind drifted, tugged by a vision that had haunted him for months. "My lord," Varro said, his grizzled face taut, "the Varkani tribes have breached the frost wall again. 3 villages burned, 200 dead. We need more legions, 10,000 men, at least." Cassian's fingers tightened on the throne's armrests, carved with solar motifs. "And the treasury?" he asked, his voice steady but distant. Senator Livia, overseer of the imperial coffers, stepped forward, her silver hair gleaming. "The treasury is strained, Majesty. The eastern trade routes yield less each year, and the plague in Calypso drained our reserves. We can muster 5,000, no more." The court murmured, advisors exchanging glances. Cassian's gaze drifted to the mosaic floor, where a golden sunburst symbolized the empire's eternal light. He saw not the mosaic but a woman's face, ethereal, her eyes like starlight, her voice a whisper calling him across a vast plain. The dream had come again last night, vivid and unrelenting, a land of rolling hills, rivers of silver, and a city of crystal towers, where she waited, her golden robe shimmering. "Come," she had said, her voice a melody. "Leave all and find me." "Majesty?" Varro's voice cut through, sharp with concern. Cassian blinked, returning to the hall. 5,000, then, he said, his tone clipped. "Reinforce the frost wall. Divert funds from the southern aqueducts if needed." He rose, the court bowing as he descended the throne steps. "We resume tomorrow." Ignoring their protests, he strode through the palace's corridors, his purple cloak trailing, guards snapping to attention. He needed air, space to think. The dream gnawed at him, its pull stronger each night, eroding his focus. He was emperor, yet he felt like a man drowning in a sea of duty, his heart tethered to a vision no one else could see. In his private chambers, Cassian shed his diadem, letting it clatter onto a table. The room was opulent, silk tapestries, a bed carved with lions, a balcony overlooking Aurelian sprawl, but it felt like a cage. He poured wine from a silver ewer, the liquid catching the torchlight, and stepped onto the balcony. The city stretched below, vibrant yet fragile, its peace a thin veneer over simmering unrest. The Varkani raids, the failing harvests, the whispers of rebellion in the east, his empire was fraying, and he was fraying with it. "My lord," a voice said softly. Emilia, his wife of 10 years, stood in the doorway, her auburn hair braided, her green eyes searching. She was the daughter of a western governor, her marriage a seal of alliance, her presence a quiet strength. "You left the court early again." "They're talking." "Let them," Cassian said, his voice rough. He sipped the wine, its bitterness sharp. "I needed a moment." Emilia approached, her silk gown rustling. "This is about the dream, isn't it?" Her tone was gentle but probing. He had told her weeks ago, reluctantly, of the woman in gold, the land of crystal towers. She had listened, her face unreadable, then urged him to focus on the Empire. Cassian, you are the son of Aurelian. The people need you here, not chasing visions. He turned her, his jaw tight. And if it's more than a vision? If it's a calling? His voice softened, almost pleading. Every night, she's there, Emilia. She knows my name. She shows me a place where the Empire's burdens don't exist. Emilia's eyes flickered with hurt. And what of us? Of me? Of our son? She gestured to the cradle where 5-year-old Lucius slept, his dark curls spilling over a silk pillow. Will you abandon us for a dream? Cassian's chest tightened. He loved Emilia, loved Lucius, yet the dream's pull was a tie he couldn't resist. I don't know, he admitted, his voice raw. But I can't ignore it. She stepped closer, her hand on his arm. Then find a way to balance it. Rule here, but seek answers. Send scouts, priests, anyone. Don't let this consume you. He nodded, but his heart was elsewhere, already crossing the plain to the Crystal City. The Oracle's warning. The Temple of Solara, perched on Aurelian's highest hill, was a marvel of white marble and bronze, its dome crowned with a golden sun that blazed at dawn. Cassian climbed its steps at first light, his cloak plain to avoid attention, his guards discreetly trailing. The dream had come again, more vivid. The woman in gold stood on a hill, her hand outstretched, a city of light behind her. Time grows short, she had whispered, her voice urgent. Come, or all will fade. Inside the temple, the air was thick with incense, the statue of Solara, goddess of sun and wisdom, looming over a brazier of eternal flame. The high oracle, Valeria, awaited him, her white robes pooling like moonlight, her blind eyes hidden behind a silver veil. She was old, her face lined like parchment, but her presence carried the weight of centuries. Majesty, she said, her voice a low hum, the goddess told me you would come. The dreams trouble you. Cassian knelt before the brazier, the heat warming his face. They're more than dreams, Valeria. A woman calls me to a land I've never seen, a city of crystal. She says I must leave everything. What does Solara say? Valeria's hands moved over the flames, her fingers tracing patterns in the smoke. The goddess speaks in riddles, but her voice is clear. Your dream is a path, but it is fraught. To follow it is to risk your throne, your family, your empire. She paused, her blind eyes seeming to pierce him. Yet to ignore it is to risk your soul. Cassian's breath caught. Is it real? This place, this woman? Valeria's lips twitched, a shadow of a smile. Real as the sun, but as hard to grasp. The goddess shows you a truth, but truths have costs. You stand at a crossroads, Cassian. One path keeps you here, bound to duty, the Empire's light dimming under its own weight. The other leads beyond, to a place of renewal or ruin. Choose wisely. He rose, his mind racing. Can I find it? This land? Perhaps, Valeria said. The goddess speaks of a river of silver, a plain beneath 3 peaks. Seek the old maps in the Imperial Library, the tales of explorers lost to time. But beware, others will see your quest as madness. Your court, your wife, even your son may turn from you. Cassian's jaw tightened. And if I go? Valeria's voice dropped to a whisper. You may find what you seek, or you may lose all. The goddess does not promise victory, only choice. He left the temple, the dawn's light harsh on his face. The city sprawled below, its beauty marred by the smoke of distant forges, the cries of merchants masking whispers of discontent. He could feel the Empire's pulse faltering, raids, famine, rebellion. The dream offered escape, a new beginning, but at what cost? At the palace, the court was restless. General Vero awaited him, his armor gleaming, his face grim. Majesty, the Varkani have struck again. A fort on the frost wall is overrun. We need your command. Cashin nodded, his mind half in the dream. Send the 5th Legion. Hold the line. He turned to Livia, who stood nearby, her tablet of accounts in hand. Find funds for another 1,000 men. Cut the festivals if you must. Livia's eyes narrowed. The people will riot without their festivals, Majesty. They're already restless. Then give them bread, Cashin snapped, his patience thin. He strode to the Imperial Library, ignoring our protests. The library was a cavern of scrolls and tomes, its air heavy with dust and ink. Scribe Marcellus, a wiry man with ink-stained fingers, bowed as Cashin entered. Old maps, Cashin said, his voice low. Tales of a land with a silver river, 3 peaks, a city of crystal. Marcellus hesitated, then led him to a locked vault. The forbidden section, Majesty. Tales deemed fanciful, dangerous. Explorers' accounts from before the Empire's founding. He unlocked a chest, revealing brittle scrolls. The chronicles of Valor speak of a land called Illyria, beyond the Nordhulls, where rivers shine like silver and towers gleam like stars. But their myths, none returned. Cashin unrolled a scroll, its ink faded but legible. A map showed a plain, 3 jagged peaks, a river winding toward a city marked with a sunburst. His heart quickened. Illyria, he whispered, the name a spark. That night, the dream returned. The woman in gold stood closer, her face clear, high cheekbones, eyes like twilight. Illyria waits, she said, her hand brushing his. Leave the throne. Come. He woke, his heart pounding, the name Illyria burning in his mind. At dawn, he summoned his council. I'm sending scouts north, he said, his voice firm. Beyond the Nordhulls, to find a land called Illyria. The court fell silent. Vero's face darkened. Majesty, the Varkani will be held, Cashin cut in. This is not a debate. Emilia, standing at his side, gripped his arm, her voice a whisper. Cashin, this is madness. He met her gaze, his eyes resolute. It's my path. The dream's grip. The council chamber of Aurelian's imperial palace was a storm of clashing voices, its marble walls reverberating with the weight of an empire on the brink. Emperor Cashin IV stood before his advisors, his purple cloak a stark contrast to the golden sunburst mosaic beneath his feet, his diadem a cold weight on his brow. At 32, his sharp features were etched with exhaustion, his dark eyes haunted by the dream that consumed him night after night. The woman in gold, her twilight eyes calling him to a land of silver rivers and crystal towers, had become more real than the throne he occupied. His announcement to send scouts to find Illyria, a place from ancient scrolls, dismissed as myth, had fractured the court's fragile unity. General Vero, his grizzled face scarred from northern campaigns, slammed a fist on the table, his voice a low growl. Majesty, the Varkani tribes have raised another village beyond the frost wall. 400 dead, the granaries burned. We need legions, not scouts chasing fairy tales. Cashin's fingers tightened on the throne's armrests, carved with solar flames that seemed to mock his faltering rule. The dream had come again, vivid and relentless. The woman stood on a hill, her golden robe shimmering, her voice a whisper that pierced his soul. Illyria is your destiny, she had said, her hand outstretched. Leave the throne, or lose all. He met Vero's gaze, his voice steady but strained. 5 scouts, Vero. No legions. They'll find Illyria, and it may save us. Senator Livia, her silver hair coiled like a crown, stepped forward, her tablet of accounts clutched like a shield. The treasury is a husk, Majesty. The eastern trade routes are choked by pirates, the harvests fail in Calypso. The people starve, and you would spend coin on a dream? Her voice was sharp, her eyes accusing. The forum whispers of rebellion. They call you mad. The court stirred, senators murmuring, their crimson togas rustling like leaves in a storm. Cashin's heart pounded, the dreams pull a tide against the empire's cries. He saw Emily at the chamber's edge, her auburn hair gleaming, her green eyes fixed on him with a mix of love and dread. She had heard of the dream weeks ago, her face paling as he described the woman in gold, the city of light. Cashin, she had said, you are the son of Aurelian. Stay with us. Now, her silence was louder than the council's protests. I am emperor, Cashin said, his voice rising, cutting through the din. Illyria is no myth. The chronicles of Valor speak of a land beyond the Nordhalls, a silver river, 3 peaks, a city of wealth and peace. If it exists, it could heal our empire. He turned to Marcellus, the scribe, his ink-stained hands trembling. Prepare the scrolls. Every detail of Illyria. The scouts leave at dawn. Marcellus bowed, his voice hesitant. Majesty, the chronicles are old, untested. Valor never returned. Then we'll succeed where he failed, Cashin snapped, his eyes burning. He looked at Emilia, his voice softening. This is for us, for Lucius, for the future. Emilia stepped forward, her voice low but piercing. You risk everything for a vision, Cashin. The people need their emperor, not a dreamer. Her hand brushed his, a plea in her touch. Send your scouts, but stay. Hold the throne. Cashin's throat tightened, the dream's melody drowning her words. I can't, he whispered, his voice raw. Not until I know. The council dispersed, their murmurs a chorus of doubt, leaving Cashin alone with Emilia's fading footsteps and the weight of a choice that could shatter his world. That evening, Cashin stood on the palace balcony, the city of Aurelian sprawling below, its marble spires dimmed by gathering clouds. The great forum buzzed with unrest, merchants closing stalls, citizens whispering of hunger and betrayal. The dream's woman haunted him, her voice a call he couldn't silence. He clutched the chronicles of Valor, its map showing a plain, 3 peaks, a silver river winding to a sunburst-marked city. Illyria. The name was a flame in his chest, promising salvation or ruin. Emilia entered, her gown rustling, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. You're slipping away, she said, her voice breaking. I see it in your eyes, Cashin. This dream, it's not just a vision. It's her. She stepped closer, her hand on his arm. What does she offer that we cannot? Cashin turned, his heart aching. She offers hope, he said, his voice hoarse. A world without raids, famine, rebellion. A place where Lucius could grow free of this crown's weight. He paused, his eyes searching hers. I love you, Emilia. But I must know if it's real. She pulled back, her face pale. And if it's not? You leave us to chaos. Lucius is 5, Cashin. He needs his father, not a ghost. She turned, her footsteps echoing, leaving him with a map and a choice that tore at his soul. The Empire's fracture. The dawn was cold, the sky heavy with the threat of rain as Captain Theron and his 5 scouts rode north from Aurelian, their cloaks blending with the mist. The city's gates loomed behind them, the crowd's murmurs a mix of awe and scorn. Cashin watched from the palace's highest tower, his diadem a cold weight, the chronicle's map burned into his mind. The dream had come again, the woman in gold standing on a bridge of light, her voice urgent, the path opens, Cashin. Come, or Illyria fades. His resolve hardened, but the Empire's cries grew louder. In the Great Forum, unrest boiled over. Merchants, their stalls empty, cursed the failing trade routes, while citizens gathered around a cloaked figure shouting from a broken fountain. "The Emperor abandons us," the man cried, his voice hoarse. "He chases dreams while the Varkani burn our homes." The crowd roared, some hurling stones at imperial banners, others turning away, their loyalty fraying. Emilia, cloaked to move unseen, watched from a shadowed alley, her heart pounding. As Empress, she was a beacon of stability, but Cassian's obsession was eroding her power. She slipped into the palace, summoning General Vero and Senator Livia to a private chamber, its walls adorned with faded tapestries of Solarian victories. "The city's breaking," she said, her voice steady but urgent. "Cassian speaks of joining the scouts. We must hold the Empire together." Vero, his armor scarred, his face grim, nodded. "The Varkani have breached another fort, my lady. The frost wells down to half strength. If the Emperor leaves, the north collapses." Livia, her tablet trembling in her hands, spoke sharply. "The treasury's empty. We've taxed the merchants to ruin, and the people starve." Senator Drusus rallies the council, whispering of a new emperor. "If Cassian goes, they'll declare him unfit." Emilia's eyes blazed, her voice cutting. "He's still emperor. We hold the throne for Lucius." She paused, her tone softening. "But we must act. Vero, strengthen the city guard, distribute what grain remains. I'll speak to the Forum, remind them of Cassian's strength, the Saffron Wars, the plague relief." Vero's loyalty was ironclad. "I'll hold the city, my lady. But the Emperor must return to his senses." Livia's voice was cold. "Drusus offers gold to the disloyal. If Cassian leaves, a regency won't save you. The council will choose another." Emilia's jaw tightened. "Then we outmaneuver Drusus. Rally the loyal senators, spread word of the scouts' mission as hope, not madness." She turned to the window, the Forum's cries a distant storm. "Cassian, don't leave us," she whispered, her heart torn. In the palace, Cassian buried himself in the Imperial Library, the Chronicles of Valor open before him. Marcellus, his hands stained with ink, read aloud. Valor spoke of a bridge of light, guarded by a question of truth. Only the worthy pass to Illyria. Cassian's pulse quickened, the dreams woman vivid, her golden robes, her twilight eyes. "The scouts will find it," he said, his voice resolute. "And I'll follow." Marcellus paled. "Majesty, the Empire needs you." "The people are dying," Cassian interrupted, his eyes burning. Illyria could change that. New lands, new hope. He strode to the armory, ordering a horse and supplies, his cloak plain to hide his rank. The armorer, Cato, hesitated. "Majesty, the court speaks of betrayal." "Stay, rule." Cassian's voice was steel. "Prepare what I ask." He returned to his chambers, the map of Illyria a beacon, the dream's call of fire in his chest. Emilia found him there, her face pale, her eyes pleading. "You're going," she said, her voice trembling. "Not just scouts, but you." Cassian faced her, his heart breaking. "I must, Emilia. Illyria's real, I feel it. It's our salvation." She stepped closer, tears falling. "And us? Lucius? You'd leave us to rebellion?" Her voice rose, raw with pain. "Stay, Cassian. Be the emperor we need." He took her hands, his voice hoarse. "I'm trying to save us all. I'll return, I swear." He kissed her, feeling her tremble, but she pulled away, her footsteps fading, leaving him with a map and a choice that could doom or redeem his empire. Shadows in the snow. The Nordhul's jagged peaks loomed like silent sentinels over the snow-dusted plain, their shadows stretching across the silver river that glinted under a pale moon. Captain Theron led his 5 scouts through the biting wind, their cloaks heavy with frost, their horses snorting clouds of steam. The Chronicles of Valor guided them, its faded map clutched in Theron's gloved hand, marking the 3 peaks and the river leading to Illyria. The air was sharp, the silence oppressive, broken only by the crunch of snow under hooves. But Theron's instincts, honed by years on the frontier, screamed of danger. "Hold," he whispered, raising a hand. His scouts froze, their eyes scanning the darkness. A flicker of movement caught Theron's gaze, Varkani warriors, their furs blending with the snow, their spears glinting like fangs. The barbarians had tracked them, drawn by the Empire's weakness, their numbers small but deadly. Theron counted 6, their forms crouched behind a ridge, waiting to strike. "Dismount," Theron ordered, his voice low. The scouts slid from their horses, tying them to a gnarled tree. Theron drew his sword, its blade a faint gleam, and signaled his men to spread out. "We need the river's path. No retreat." The lead scout, a wiry man named Gaius, whispered, "They're Varkani raiders, scouts for a larger force. If we fight, we alert the horde." Theron's jaw tightened. "Then we don't fight. We slip past." He pointed to the river, its silver waters a faint guide. "Follow it, stay low. If they attack, aim for their legs, slow them, don't kill." The scouts moved like shadows, their boots silent on the snow. The river's edge was slick, its banks lined with ice, but the map promised it led to Illyria's plain. Theron's heart quickened at the thought of the Crystal City, the Emperor's dream driving him forward. But a cry shattered the silence. A Varkani warrior, his spear raised, had spotted them. "Now!" Theron hissed, diving behind a boulder. The scouts scattered, arrows whistling past as the Varkani charged. Gaius drew his bow, loosing a shot that struck a warrior's thigh, sending him sprawling. Theron lunged, his sword slashing another's spear arm, blood staining the snow. The Varkani retreated, their cries echoing, but Theron knew more would come. "Move," he shouted, leading the scouts along the river. The 3 peaks loomed closer, their shapes matching the Chronicle's map. A faint glow flickered ahead, a bridge, its arches shimmering like light on water. The Chronicles had spoken of a bridge of light guarded by truth, and Theron's pulse raced. "There," he said, pointing. "Illyria's close." But the Varkani's cries grew louder, a distant horn signaling reinforcements. Theron gripped his sword, his mission clear. "We reach the bridge, or we die." In Aurelian, the great forum was a cauldron of unrest. The morning sun did little to warm the crowds, their faces gaunt from hunger, their voices rising in anger. Merchants closed their stalls early, their wares sparse, while citizens gathered around a makeshift platform where a man in a tattered cloak shouted, "The Emperor chases myths while we starve. The sun throne is empty." The crowd roared, some throwing stones at imperial banners, others turning away, torn between fear and fury. Emilia, cloaked to blend with the masses, watched from a colonnade, her heart heavy. As Empress, she was a symbol of stability, but Cassian's obsession with Illyria was eroding her authority. She slipped into the palace, summoning General Vero and Senator Livia to a hidden chamber. "The city's breaking," she said, her voice steady but urgent. "Cassian's scouts are gone, and he speaks of following them. We must act." Vero's face was grim, his armor scarred from northern campaigns. "The Varkani have taken another fort, my lady. The frost wall's crumbling. If the Emperor leaves, the north falls." Livia's silver hair gleamed in the torchlight, her tablet of accounts trembling in her hands. "The treasury's bled dry," We've raised taxes, cut rations. The people see Cassian's absence as betrayal. There's talk of a new emperor. Senator Drusus has the council's ear. Emilia's eyes flashed, her voice sharp. Cassian is emperor. We hold the throne for him and Lucius. She paused, her tone softening. But we must prepare for a regency. If he leaves, I'll rule for Lucius until he returns. Varro nodded, his loyalty unwavering. I'll strengthen the city guard, distribute what grain we have. But the people need hope, my lady. Speak to them. Livia hesitated, then spoke. Drusus is gathering senators, whispering of rebellion. If Cassian goes north, they'll move against you. Emilia's jaw tightened. Then we move first. Rally the loyal senators, Varro. I'll address the forum tomorrow. She turned to the window, the city's unrest a distant roar. Cassian, come back to us, she whispered, her heart torn between love and duty. The Emperor's resolve. Cassian stood in the Imperial Library, the Chronicles of Valor spread before him, its pages brittle under his fingers. The map of Illyria glowed in the lamplight, its silver river and 3 peaks a promise that haunted his every thought. The dream had come again, the woman in gold closer, her twilight eyes urgent. The bridge is near, she had said, her hand brushing his cheek. Come, or Illyria fades, and your empire with it. He woke with her voice in his ears, his resolve hardening. Marcellus, the scribe, hovered nearby, his ink-stained hands sorting scrolls. Majesty, the chronicles mention a trial at the bridge, a guardian who demands truth. Valor wrote of a question, a test of the heart. None passed. Cassian's eyes narrowed. Then I'll face it. He traced the map's sunburst, marking Illyria's city. Therein we'll find the bridge. If he confirms it, I go. Marcellus paled. Majesty, the Empire is dying, Cassian cut in, his voice sharp. Raids, famine, rebellion. Illyria may hold answers, new lands, new strength. I won't let fear stop me. He left the library, striding to the armory, where he ordered a horse, armor, and supplies for a journey north. The armorer, a grizzled man named Cato, bowed but hesitated. Majesty, the court speaks of madness. The people need you here. Cassian's jaw tightened. They need a future. Prepare what I ask. He donned a plain cloak, hiding his imperial sigil, and slipped into the palace's stables, checking the horses himself. The dream's pull was a fire in his chest, Illyria a beacon he couldn't ignore. At dusk, Emilia found him there, her green eyes blazing. You're leaving, she said, her voice trembling with anger and grief. Not just scouts, but you. For a dream. Cassian faced her, his heart aching. It's more than a dream, Emilia. It's a chance to save us, Lucius, you, the Empire. If Illyria's real, it could change everything. She stepped closer, tears falling. And if it's a lie? You leave us to rebellion, to the Varcani, to chaos. She gripped his hand, her voice breaking. Stay, Cassian. Rule with me. We can rebuild. He pulled her close, his voice raw. I love you, Emilia. But I can't ignore this. If I don't go, I'll never know. He kissed her forehead, feeling her tremble. I'll return. For you, for Lucius. She pulled away, her eyes hard. If you leave, I'll hold the throne for Lucius. But don't expect us to wait forever. She turned, her gown trailing, leaving him alone in the stable's shadows. In the Nordhalls, Theron's scouts reached the Bridge of Light, its arches glowing faintly, spanning the silver river. The 3 peaks loomed above, their shadows dark. But a figure stood on the bridge, a cloaked man, his face hidden, his voice deep. "Who seeks Illyria?" Theron stepped forward, his sword sheathed. "Scouts of Emperor Cassian. We seek the Crystal City." The Guardian's eyes glinted. "Illyria demands truth. Answer this. What drives your Emperor?" Theron hesitated, the Chronicle's warning echoing. "A dream," he said. "A vision of hope." The Guardian's voice was cold. "Hope or madness? One may pass, but the truth will test him." The bridge flared, its light blinding, and Theron's scouts shielded their eyes, unsure if they faced salvation or doom. In Aurelian, the forum's unrest grew, banners torn, voices chanting for bread and a new emperor. Emilia prepared her speech, her heart heavy, knowing Cassian's departure was near. The empire hung by a thread, and Illyria's promise was a gamble that could save or destroy them all. The path to Illyria. The Nordhall's icy winds tore at Cassian's cloak as he rode through the snow-dusted plain, his horse's hooves crunching on frozen ground. The three peaks loomed ahead, their jagged silhouettes matching the Chronicles of Valor's map, the silver river a faint glimmer under a sky heavy with clouds. Cassian's heart pounded, the dream's woman in gold a constant presence in his mind, her twilight eyes, her urgent voice. "Hurry, Cassian. Illyria waits." He had left Aurelian at dawn, the palace gates closing behind him, Emilia's tear-streaked face a wound he carried. The empire was fraying, but the dream's pull was stronger, promising salvation or ruin. His leather cuirass, lighter than imperial armor, offered little warmth, and his sword hung heavy at his side. The Chronicles were tucked into his satchel, their faded map guiding him toward the Bridge of Light. He rode alone, his guards dismissed to avoid attention, but the Nordhalls were treacherous, wolves howled in the distance, and Varkani tracks marked the snow. Cassian's breath clouded the air, his resolve afire against the cold. Illyria was close, he felt it, but the cost of his choice weighed heavier with each step. He reached the silver river by dusk, its waters shimmering unnaturally, reflecting no stars. The Bridge of Light stood ahead, its arches glowing like molten glass, spanning the river in defiance of nature. Cassian dismounted, tying his horse to a gnarled tree, his eyes fixed on the bridge. The Chronicles spoke of a guardian, a trial of truth, and his pulse quickened. Theron's scouts should have reached it by now, but the plain was silent, the air thick with menace. A figure emerged on the bridge, a cloaked man, tall and gaunt, his face shadowed, his voice like grinding stone. "Who seeks Illyria?" he asked, his eyes glinting like ice. Cassian stepped forward, his cloak falling to reveal his plain armor, his voice steady. "Cassian IV, Emperor of the Solarian Empire. I seek the Crystal City, guided by a vision." The Guardian's gaze pierced him, unyielding. "Illyria demands truth. Why do you come?" Cassian's throat tightened, the dream's woman vivid in his mind. "A woman in gold calls me," he said, his voice raw. "She promises a land of peace, a salvation for my empire. It crumbles, raids, famine, rebellion. I seek Illyria to save it." The Guardian's eyes narrowed. "Truth is not enough. What do you flee?" Cassian hesitated, the weight of Emilia's tears, Lucius's innocent eyes, pressing on him. "I flee failure," he admitted, his voice breaking. "The crown is a chain, the empire a pyre. I seek a new path, for them, for me." The bridge flared, its light blinding, and the Guardian stepped aside. "Truth opens the way," he said, his voice cold. "Cross, but know the path tests the heart." The arches pulsed, revealing a distant plain where crystal towers gleamed faintly, their light both promise and warning. Cassian stepped onto the bridge, its surface warm, its glow enveloping him. The plain unfolded, the Crystal City closer, but a cry broke the silence, Theron's voice, faint but urgent, from beyond the bridge. Cashin drew his sword, his heart racing, and crossed, the dream's call drowning out the Empire's echoes. In Aurelian, the great forum was a cauldron of chaos, the midday sun casting harsh shadows over a crowd on the verge of riot. Merchants, their stalls empty, hurled insults at imperial guards, while citizens chanted, "Bread or blood." A broken statue of Solara lay in pieces, its fragments trampled by angry feet. Senator Drusus, his crimson toga gleaming, stood on a platform, his voice ringing out. "The Emperor abandons us to chase dreams. We need strength, not madness." Emilia, her imperial sigil gleaming, faced the crowd from the riot house steps, her auburn hair unbound, her green eyes fierce. Her speech had held them yesterday, but today's hunger was fiercer. "People of Aurelian," she shouted, her voice cutting through the din. "Cashin seeks hope beyond the Nordhalls, a new land to heal our empire. He fought for you in the Saffron Wars, fed you in Calypsa. Trust him now." The crowd wavered, some cheering, others jeering, but Drusus's voice rose again. "Hope won't fill our bellies. Choose a new emperor." Stones flew, one grazing Emilia's shoulder, but she stood firm, her guards forming a line. General Vero, his armor scarred, stood beside her, his voice low. "My lady, the guard can't hold them much longer. Drusus has bribed half the council. We need more grain, more men." Senator Livia, her tablet clutched, whispered, "The treasury's empty. The loyal senators are with you, but Drusus offers coin. If Cashin doesn't return soon, they'll declare a regency, or worse." Emilia's jaw tightened, her heart torn between love for Cashin and duty to Lucius. "Distribute the last reserves," she ordered Vero. "Rally the guard to the palace. I'll hold the council tonight." She turned to the crowd, her voice rising. "The Sun Throne stands. Your Empress fights for you." The crowd quieted, her presence a fragile anchor, but Drusus's smile was a shadow of coming betrayal. The crystal veil. Theron stood on the plain beyond the bridge, the crystal city of Illyria shimmering in the distance, its towers gleaming like stars under a moonless sky. The silver river wound behind him, the bridge of light fading as he stepped onto the grass, his sword drawn. The Varkani warband, 12 warriors, their furs stained with blood, had cut him off, their spears raised, their eyes wild with fury. Theron was alone, his scouts sent back to Aurelian, his mission teetering on the edge of failure. The Varkani leader, a hulking figure with a braided beard, stepped forward, his spear glinting. "Imperial dog," he growled in broken Solarian. "This land is ours. Turn back, or die." Theron's grip tightened, his voice steady. "I seek Illyria, not war. Let me pass." The chronicles had warned of guardians, but these were mortal men, drawn by the Empire's weakness. The crystal city flickered, its light pulsing, as if alive. The leader laughed, raising his spear. "Illyria's a myth. Your emperor's mad." He lunged, his spear aiming for Theron's chest. Theron parried, his sword slashing the leader's arm, blood spraying the grass. The Varkani charged, their cries echoing, but Theron moved like a shadow, cutting down two before retreating toward the city's glow. A figure appeared at the plain's edge, a woman in gold, her twilight eyes glowing, her form both real and ethereal. "Theron," she said, her voice the same melody that haunted Cashin. "Illyria tests the worthy. Fight for truth, not blood." She vanished, her light merging with the city's glow, leaving Theron stunned. He fought on, his blade a blur, wounding but not killing, his mission clear. The Varkani faltered, their leader clutching his arm, and retreated, their horns fading into the night. Theron staggered toward the city, its towers closer, their crystal surfaces reflecting not stars but faces, his own, Cashin's, the woman's. What are you? He whispered, his heart racing. Cashin reached the plain, the crystal city visible, its light a beacon. He found Theron, bloody but alive, kneeling before the towers. Majesty, Theron gasped, it's real. But it's strange. The woman, she spoke to me. Cashin's eyes widened, the dream's truth unfolding. Illyria, he said, his voice trembling. We're here. But the city's light shifted, revealing not a paradise but a mirror, reflecting his fears, Lucius crying, Emilia alone, Aurelian burning. The woman in gold appeared, her voice soft but stern. Choose, Cashin. Illyria is truth, but truth demands sacrifice. In Aurelian, Emilia faced the council, Drusus's allies circling like wolves. The Emperor seeks our salvation, she declared, her voice fierce. Hold the throne for him. But Drusus's smile was cold, his hand on a dagger, as the city's unrest roared outside. The mirror of Illyria. The crystal towers of Illyria loomed before Cashin, their surfaces shimmering like liquid starlight, reflecting not the Nordhal's snowy plain but fragments of his own life, Lucius's innocent smile, Emilia's tear-streaked face, Aurelian's burning streets. The silver river flowed silently behind him, the bridge of light faded, its guardian gone. Theron knelt nearby, bloody from his fight with the Varkani, his sword planted in the snow, his eyes wide with awe and fear. The woman in gold stood at the city's edge, her twilight eyes piercing Cashin, her golden robes glowing against the dark. Choose, Cashin, she said, her voice a melody that echoed in his soul. Illyria is truth, but truth demands sacrifice. Cashin's heart pounded, his sword heavy in his hand, the chronicles of Valar's map crumpled in his satchel. The dream that had driven him from Aurelian, from Emilia and Lucius, was real, yet Illyria was no paradise. The tower's reflections showed his empire's fractures, Varkani spears, starving citizens, Senator Drusus's cold smile. What is this place? He asked, his voice trembling. You promised salvation. The woman stepped closer, her form both solid and ethereal, her eyes holding his. Illyria is no city, but a mirror, she said. It shows what you are, what you flee, what you must face. You sought escape from your empire's burdens, but truth lies in confronting them. Cashin's throat tightened, the weight of his crown, left behind in Aurelian, pressing on him still. I came to save them, he said, his voice raw. The empire's dying, raids, famine, rebellion. You showed me hope. Her gaze softened, but her voice was firm. Hope is not a place, but a choice. Illyria tests the heart. Stay, and you may live in this vision, free of duty, but your empire falls. Return, and face the truth, your strength, your failures, your love. Theron rose, his face pale, blood staining his cloak. Majesty, I saw her too, he said, his voice hoarse. She spoke to me on the plain. This place, it's not what we thought. It's alive, judging us. Cashin's eyes flickered to the towers, now reflecting Emilia's face, her voice echoing, You're tearing us apart. Lucius appeared, his wooden soldiers scattered, his eyes pleading. The empire burned, Drusus's dagger gleaming. Cashin's knees buckled, his sword falling to the snow. I left them, he whispered, his voice breaking. For this? The woman knelt, her hand brushing his cheek, warm yet intangible. You sought truth, Cashin. Now choose it. Illyria is yours, but only if you abandon all else. He looked at the towers, their light tempting, offering peace without pain. But Emilia's tears, Lucius's trust, pulled harder. I can't, he said, his voice resolute. I won't abandon them. He rose, his eyes meeting hers. Take me back. The woman smiled, her form fading, the towers dimming. "Truth is your path," she said, her voice a whisper. The plain dissolved, the silver river vanishing, leaving Cashin and Theron in the snow, the three peaks silent above them. The dream was gone, but its truth burned in Cashin's chest, a call to return, to fight, to rule. Theron gripped his arm, his voice urgent. "Majesty, the Varkani are still out there. We need to move." Cashin nodded, his sword retrieved, his heart set on Aurelian. Illyria was no haven, but a mirror showing him what he must do. In Aurelian, the great forum was a battlefield of words and fists, the evening sky blood-red as the crowd surged against the Imperial Guards. Senator Drusus stood on a shattered pedestal, his crimson toga a banner, his voice booming. "Cashin has fled. The Sun Throne is empty. I offer bread, strength, a new empire." The crowd roared, stones flying, some striking the guards' shields. Merchants, desperate, joined the chant, while others wavered, torn by loyalty to Emilia. Emilia stood on the Rathaus balcony, her imperial sigil gleaming, her auburn hair unbound, her green eyes blazing. The grain reserves were gone, distributed to calm the crowd, but Drusus's promises fueled their fury. She raised her hands, her voice cutting through the chaos. "People of Aurelian, your emperor seeks hope for us all. I stand for him, for Lucius, for you. The Sun Throne holds." A woman in the crowd, her face gaunt, shouted, "Where's Cashin? We starve." Others echoed her, but Emilia's gaze held them, her presence afire. "He fights for a future beyond the Nordhulls. Trust him as you trusted him in the Saffron Wars." General Varro, his armor dented, stood beside her, his voice low. "My lady, the guards are faltering. Drusus has half the council and coin from the eastern lords. We need Cashin now." Senator Livia, her silver hair disheveled, whispered, "The loyal senators are with you, but Drusus plans to seize the palace tonight. We must act." Emilia's jaw tightened, her heart torn between love for Cashin and fear for Lucius. "Fortify the palace," she ordered Varro. "Livia, summon the loyalists. We hold the council chamber." She turned to the crowd, her voice rising. "The empire is yours. Fight for it, not against it." The crowd wavered, some cheering, but Drusus's dagger gleamed in the torchlight, his allies closing in. The sun returns. Cashin and Theron rode south through the Nordhulls, the snow thinning as the peaks receded, their horses' hooves pounding the frozen earth. The dream's truth had shattered Cashin's illusions. Illyria was no city, but a test, revealing his duty to his empire, his family. Emilia's face, Lucius's voice, drove him forward, the Chronicle's map discarded, its promise a lie he nearly died for. Theron, his wounds bandaged, rode beside him, his loyalty unwavering. "Majesty, the Varkani are massing," he warned. "We may face them before Aurelian." Cashin's eyes were fierce, his voice steady. "Then we fight through. The Empire needs us." The Nordhull silence was broken by distant horns, Varkani scouts, tracking their path. Cashin gripped his sword, his heart set on home. In Aurelian, the palace was a fortress under siege, its gates barred, guards lining the walls. Emilia stood in the council chamber, Lucius at her side, his small hand clutching hers. The loyal senators, half the council, stood with her, their faces grim, while Drusus's forces gathered outside, their chants echoing. Varro, his sword drawn, reported, "The guards hold, but Drusus has mercenaries. If they breach the gates, we're outnumbered." Livia, her tablet abandoned, spoke urgently. "My lady, we can negotiate. Drusus wants power, not blood. Offer him governorship of the East." Emilia's eyes blazed. "No. The throne is Cassian's, Lucius's. We fight. She turned to Lucius, kneeling. Be brave, my love. Your father's coming. Lucius nodded, his dark eyes wide, clutching a wooden soldier. The gates shuddered, Drusus's mercenaries ramming them, their cries a storm. Emilia drew a dagger, her gown stained with dust, her voice resolute. Hold the chamber. For the Empire. Cassian and Theron reached the plains south of the Nordhalls, the Varkani warband, 20 strong, blocking their path. Their leader, his braided beard bloodied, raised a spear. Imperial fool, he growled. Your empire burns, and you chase ghosts. Cassian dismounted, his sword gleaming. I chase truth, he said, his voice a roar. Stand aside, or fall. The Varkani charged, their spears flashing, but Cassian fought like a man reborn, his blade cutting through fur and flesh, there at his side. Blood stained the grass, the warband retreating, their horns silenced. They rode on, Aurelian spires visible at dawn. Smoke rose from the Forum, the palace under siege. Cassian's heart raced, Emilia's name a prayer on his lips. In the palace, the gates splintered, Drusus's mercenaries pouring in. Emilia faced them in the chamber, her dagger raised, Varro and the guards forming a line. Drusus entered, his toga blood-red, his dagger gleaming. Yield, Emilia, he said, his voice cold. The throne is mine. A horn sounded outside, sharp and imperial. Cassian burst into the chamber, his sword bloodied, Theron behind him. The throne is mine, he roared, his blade clashing with Drusus's. The mercenaries faltered, the guards rallying, and Cassian struck, wounding Drusus's arm, forcing him to his knees. Emilia ran to Cassian, her dagger falling, her arms around him. You're back, she whispered, tears streaming. Lucius joined them, clutching his father's leg. Cassian knelt, embracing them, his voice hoarse. I saw the truth. Illyria was a mirror, it showed me what I nearly lost. The mercenaries surrendered, Drusus bound, the council cheering. Cassian faced them, his diadem reclaimed, his voice strong. The Empire stands. We rebuild, together. The crowd outside quieted, news of his return spreading, hope rekindled. Emilia took his hand, her eyes bright. He chose us, she said, her voice soft. Cassian nodded, the dream's woman gone, her truth now has strength. The sun throne gleamed, Aurelian's dawn bright, the Empire's fractures ready to heal. The legacy of truth. 10 years had passed since Cassian IV returned from the Nordhalls, the dream of Illyria revealed as a mirror of truth that reshaped his destiny and the Solarian Empire. Aurelian stood as a beacon of renewal, its marble spires gleaming under a vibrant spring sky, its docks bustling with ships from the Hanseatic League and the Saffron Coast. The great forum thrummed with life, merchants bartering silks and grain, philosophers debating beneath new colonnades, children laughing around fountains restored after the rebellion's scars. The Varkani were now allies, their northern lands integrated into the empire through trade and treaties, the frost wall a symbol of peace rather than war. The memory of Senator Drusus's betrayal had faded, replaced by tales of Cassian's return, a story told in markets and temples as the triumph of truth over dreams. Cassian, now 42, stood in the imperial palace's council chamber, his diadem a familiar weight, its gold polished but unadorned, reflecting his tempered rule. His dark hair was fully gray, his face lined with the wisdom of hard-won battles against the Varkani, rebellion, and his own heart. Illyria's lesson had reshaped him, not as a dreamer but as an emperor who faced his failures and rebuilt with his people. The chronicles of Valor rested in a locked vault, their map a relic of a journey that taught him to value the empire he nearly lost. He gazed at the sunburst mosaic on the floor, its golden rays a reminder of his duty, and smiled, a quiet strength in his eyes. Emilia entered, her auburn hair now threaded with white, her green eyes alight with the fire that had held Aurelian together in his absence. At 40, she was no longer just empress but a co-ruler, her name etched beside Cassian's in decrees that restored trade, fed the hungry, and built schools for healers inspired by the Calypso plague. Her gown, woven with silver threads, caught the light as she approached, her hand resting on Cassian's arm. "The council awaits," she said, her voice warm but firm. "The eastern governors report a surplus, grain, coin, peace. Your vision bore fruit, even if it wasn't Illyria." Cassian took her hand, his voice soft. "Your vision, Emilia. You held the throne when I faltered." He paused, his eyes meeting hers. "I saw you in Illyria's mirror, your strength, your tears. It brought me back." She smiled, a rare softness breaking through her resolve. "And you stayed. That's the Empire's salvation." Her gaze drifted to the window, where the Forum's festival preparations were underway, banners of gold and purple waving. "Lucius will carry it forward." Lucius, now 15, stood in the palace courtyard, sparring with Commander Theron, his wooden sword replaced by a steel blade, its edge blunted for training. Tall and lean, with Cassian's dark eyes and Emilia's fiery spirit, he was the heir apparent, his training blending swordplay with lessons in governance and healing. Theron, his scars from the Nordhalls faded, parried Lucius's strike, his voice gruff but proud. "Faster, Prince. The Empire needs your strength." Lucius grinned, his breath clouding the air. "Like my father's?" he asked, his sword flashing. Theron laughed, a rare sound. "Like both your parents. They rebuilt this empire. You'll guard it." He stepped back, bowing as Cassian and Emilia approached, Lucius sheathing his blade. Cassian knelt, his hand on Lucius's shoulder. "You're ready," he said, his voice thick with pride. "But the throne's weight is heavy. Never chase dreams over duty." Lucius nodded, his eyes bright. "I learned from you, father. Illyria's tale is my lesson." He clutched a small sunburst pendant, a gift from Emilia, its gold echoing the throne's motif. Emilia embraced him, her voice soft. "You'll be greater than us, Lucius. But stay true." She turned to Cassian, her hand in his, their bond a cornerstone of the Empire's renewal. In the Forum, General Vero, now retired, oversaw the festival, his grizzled face softened by peace. The event marked 10 years since Cassian's return, a celebration of the Empire's strength. Merchants offered bread and wine, healers dispensed herbs, and musicians played, their melodies a hymn to survival. Vero approached Cassian, his tunic plain, his loyalty unwavering. "Majesty, the Varkani send tribute, furs, iron. The north is yours." Cassian clasped his arm, his voice warm. "Ours, Vero. You held the frost wall." He glanced at Theron, now a council advisor, his Nordhall's journey a legend. "And you showed me Illyria's truth." Theron bowed, his eyes steady. "It was no city, Majesty. It was your heart," reflected. Senator Livia, her white hair gleaming, joined them, her scrolls now records of prosperity. "The council's united," she said, her voice calm. "The Empire thrives. Your choice saved us." Cassian shook his head, his eyes on Emilia and Lucius. "Their choice saved us. I only returned." The festival filled the Forum with light, candles glowing like a sea of stars, a tribute to the Empire's rebirth. Cassian, Emilia, and Lucius stood on the Rathaus steps, their presence a beacon. Cassian spoke, his voice ringing out. 10 years ago, I saw a dream and found truth. You, my people, rebuilt this empire. The sun throne shines for you. The crowd roared, their candles a wave of hope, their loyalty a fire that burned away the past. Lucius raised his pendant, his voice clear. For Aurelian. The crowd echoed, their voices a tide, and Emilia's hand tightened in Cassian's, her eyes bright with tears of pride. A healer, trained in Emilia's school, approached, offering a sprig of yarrow. For you, Empress, she said, her voice reverent. Emilia took it, her throat tight, and nodded. For the Empire, she replied. As night fell, the festival's music soared, laughter and song filling the air where rebellion once raged. Cassian, Emilia, and Lucius stood together, their family the Empire's heart, their scars a testament to their strength. Illyria's mirror had faded, but its truth lived on in Cassian's rule, Emilia's wisdom, Lucius's future, and Aurelian's dawn, fierce and unbroken. Dreams, duty, and the Solarian Empire. The tale of Cassian IV and the Solarian Empire, while fictional, draws inspiration from the rich tapestry of Roman and Byzantine history, interwoven with the mythological resonance of dream-driven quests like that of Max and Ledig in the Welsh Mabinogion. Set in the imagined city of Aurelian, the story reflects the challenges faced by emperors in late antiquity, where the weight of empire, spanning vast territories, plagued by invasions, economic strain, and internal dissent, tested the limits of human ambition and resolve. Cassian's journey, driven by a vision of Illyria, mirrors historical and legendary narratives where rulers grapple with the tension between personal longing and public duty, seeking salvation in dreams only to find truth in responsibility. In the 4th and 5th centuries, the Roman Empire faced crises akin to those of the Solarian Empire. Barbarian invasions, such as those by the Visigoths and Vandals, paralleled the Varcani raids that threatened Cassian's northern frontier. The Roman Emperor Constantine XI Palaiologos, who faced the fall of Constantinople in 1453, offers a historical echo of Cassian's struggle. Constantine's desperate stand against the Ottoman siege, knowing his empire was crumbling, reflects Cassian's fear of failure and his search for a miraculous solution in Illyria. Unlike Constantine, who died defending his city, Cassian returns, his dream revealed as a test of his commitment to his people, a narrative choice inspired by the redemptive arcs of legendary figures. The Mabinogian's tale of Max and Ledig, a Roman emperor who dreams of a maiden in a distant land and abandons his throne to find her, serves as a direct inspiration for Cassian's story. In the Welsh legend, Maxen, often identified with Magnus Maximus, a historical usurper emperor from 383 to 388 CE, dreams of a beautiful woman in a land of rivers and mountains, leading him to Britain, where he finds Elin of the hosts. Unlike Cassian, Maxen's quest ends in conquest and marriage, but both stories explore the pull of a vision that risks an empire. Cassian's Illyria, with its silver river and crystal towers, evokes the mythic landscapes of Celtic lore, where otherworldly realms test mortal hearts. The woman in gold, a divine or ethereal guide, parallels figures like Elin or the goddesses of Roman mythology, such as Fortuna, who guide rulers through trials. The Solarian Empire structure, its great forum, imperial palace, and temple of Solara, draws from the urban splendor of Rome and Constantinople. The forum mirrors Rome's bustling public spaces, where political intrigue and public unrest shaped imperial policy. The Temple of Solara, with its high oracle Valeria, reflects the religious syncretism of late antiquity, blending Roman worship of Sol Invictus with the oracular traditions of Delphi or Cumae. Emilia's role as empress, holding the empire together in Cassian's absence, echoes Byzantine empresses like Theodora, who wielded significant influence during Justinian's reign, navigating court politics and public unrest with strategic brilliance. The theme of duty versus dreams resonates with historical emperors who face personal crises amidst public responsibility. Julian the Apostate, 361 to 363 CE, who sought to restore pagan traditions against a Christianizing empire, pursued a vision that alienated his court, much like Cassian's obsession with Illyria. Julian's death in battle, driven by his ideals, contrasts with Cassion's return, highlighting the story's focus on redemption through self-awareness. The rebellion led by Senator Drusus parallels historical usurpations, such as those during the Year of the Four Emperors, 69 CE, where ambitious senators exploited imperial weakness to seize power. Illyria itself, revealed as a mirror of truth rather than a physical city, draws from mythological traditions where quests lead to self-discovery. In Plato's philosophy, the allegory of the cave presents a world of shadows mistaken for reality, much like Illyria's illusory promise. The Bridge of Light and its guardian, demanding truth, echo Celtic and Germanic tales of trials at liminal spaces, rivers, bridges, or gates, where heroes prove their worth. Cassion's choice to return reflects the Stoic ideal of virtue over desire, a principle championed by Marcus Aurelius, whose meditations grapple with the balance of personal longing and imperial duty. The Solarian Empire's recovery, driven by Cassion and Aemilia's partnership, mirrors historical moments of renewal, such as the reforms of Diocletian or the reconquests of Justinian. The integration of the Varcani, turning enemies into allies, recalls Rome's absorption of barbarian tribes like the Franks, who became federates under imperial rule. Aemilia's establishment of healer schools reflects the spread of medical knowledge in late antiquity, inspired by figures like Galen, whose works influenced Byzantine medicine. The story's resolution, with Lucius as heir, underscores the cyclical nature of empire, each generation inheriting the triumphs and burdens of the last. Lucius's training under Theron and his parents' guidance echoes the preparation of heirs like Constantine the Great's sons, groomed to sustain a fragile empire. The festival marking Aurelian's renewal parallels Roman triumphs, public celebrations that reaffirmed imperial legitimacy after crises. The emperor who abandoned his throne for a dream weaves these historical and mythological threads into a narrative of human struggle, where dreams test the heart but duty defines the legacy. Cassion's journey, like Maxon's, is a quest for meaning, but his return to Aurelian affirms that true salvation lies not in escaping responsibility but in embracing it, a lesson resonant in the annals of empires and the tales of heroes who dared to dream. The emperor who abandoned his throne for a dream. The sun's eternal light. 15 years had passed since Cassion IV returned from the Nordhulls, the dream of Illyria revealed as a mirror of truth that reshaped his destiny and saved the Solarian Empire. Aurelian stood as a monument to resilience, its marble spires piercing a twilight sky, its docks alive with ships from the Saffron coast and the eastern provinces. The great forum bustled with merchants, their stalls overflowing with grain, silks, and spices, a testament to the empire's restored prosperity. The scars of rebellion, shattered statues, charred stones, were gone, replaced by gardens and fountains, the city's heartbeat strong and steady. The Varcani, once raiders, were now federates, their northern lands woven into the empire through trade and peace. The tale of Cassion's quest, once whispered as madness, was now a legend of redemption, sung in taverns and etched in the annals of the imperial library. Cassion, now 47, stood in the imperial palace's throne room, his diadem set aside, his gray hair unbound, his dark eyes reflecting a quiet peace. The sun throne gleamed behind him, its golden rays a symbol of the empire he had nearly lost but fought to save. Illyria's lesson, that truth lies in facing one's failures, had guided his rule, transforming him from a dreamer into a leader who shared the crown's weight with his people. The chronicles of Valor remained locked away, their map a relic of a journey that taught him to value duty over desire. He wore a simple purple tunic, his sword retired, his legacy now in the empire's strength in his son's hands. Aemilia, at 45, stood beside him, her auburn hair fully silver, her green eyes alight with the wisdom of a co-ruler who had held Aurelian together. Her reforms, schools for healers, trade pacts with the Hanseatic League, and councils for the provinces, had rebuilt the empire's foundation. Her gown, embroidered with sunbursts, shimmered as she took Cassion's hand, her voice warm. "The empire thrives," she said, gesturing to the throne room's windows, where Aurelian's lights glowed. Your truth became our strength. Cassian smiled, his hand squeezing hers. Your strength, Emilia. You held the throne, the people, when I chased shadows. His eyes softened, the memory of Illyria's mirror, Lucius's tears, Emilia's courage, still vivid. I saw you there, in the crystal. You brought me home. She leaned close, her voice a whisper. And you stayed. That's our legacy. Her gaze drifted to the courtyard, where Lucius, now 20, stood ready to take the throne, his coronation set for dawn. Lucius was tall, his dark eyes Cassian's, his resolve Emilia's, his steel sword gleaming at his side. Trained by Commander Theron in war and by Emilia in governance, he was the Empire's heir, his heart shaped by his parents' tale. He approached, his sunburst pendant catching the light, his voice steady. Father, mother, the councils gathered. The provinces send tribute, grain from Calypso, iron from the north. They're ready for me. Cassian knelt, his hand on Lucius's shoulder, his voice thick. You're more than ready, son. The throne's yours, but it's heavy. Rule with truth, not dreams. He rose, embracing Lucius, his heart full. Emilia hugged him, her eyes glistening. You're our light, Lucius. Led as we did, together. Lucius nodded, his pendant a reminder of their bond, his future the Empire's hope. In the forum, General Varro, now frail but proud, watched the coronation preparations, his retired status a badge of honor. Banners of gold and purple waved, merchants offered bread, and healers from Emilia's schools dispensed herbs, their work a legacy of the Empire's renewal. Varro approached Cassian, his voice gruff. Majesty, the Varkani sent envoys for the coronation. The Empire's whole again. Cassian clasped his arm, his voice warm. Thanks to you, Varro. You held the north. He turned to Theron, now graying, his Nordhall scars a badge of loyalty. And you showed me Illyria's truth. Theron bowed, his eyes steady. It was your choice, Majesty. To return, to fight. He glanced at Lucius, standing tall. He'll carry it forward. Senator Livia, her white hair gleaming, joined them, her scrolls now records of peace. The council's loyal, the treasury full. Lucius will rule a stronger empire than you found. Cassian nodded, his eyes on the forum, where a festival began, candles lighting the dusk, a tribute to the Empire's rebirth. We built it together, he said, his voice soft. For him. At dawn, Lucius stood on the Ryehouse steps, the diadem placed on his brow, the crowd roaring. For Aurelian, he declared, his sword raised, his voice echoing his father's strength, his mother's wisdom. Cassian and Emilia stood behind him, their hands clasped, their eyes bright with pride. A healer approached Emilia, offering a sprig of yarrow. For you, Empress, she said, her voice reverent. Emilia took it, her throat tight, and nodded. For the Empire, she replied. As the festival continued, music and laughter filled the forum, the Empire's scars a distant memory. Cassian and Emilia stepped back, their rule passing to Lucius, their bond the foundation of Aurelian's light. Illyria's mirror had faded, but its truth lived on in Lucius's reign, Emilia's legacy, Cassian's redemption, and an empire that shone eternal under the sun.